Everybody, my name's Brad Kelly, and I am the regional coordinator for the Society of Biblical Literature Pacific Coast region. Welcome to this installment of what we're calling the SBL Pacific Coast 7 Good Minutes, Meet Our Scholars. Just a chance for us to introduce some of our established and emerging scholars that we have. We think we've got some of the best folks out here doing biblical studies in the Pacific Coast region. And I'm delighted to welcome as our guest today, Dr. Gale Yee. Gale has been out here not too long now after her retirement. She's the Nancy W. King Professor of Biblical Studies Emerita at the Episcopal Divinity School. And I think many of us will know her as one of the recent presidents of the Society of Biblical Literature. So Gale, thanks for joining us. How are you doing today?
Doing okay, doing okay. It's
all right.
Sunny out here.
Great. Well, 7 good minutes. Here we go. Here's question number 1. I mentioned the Episcopal Divinity School. How long did you teach there, and did you teach anywhere else before that in your career?
Yes, I was at EDS, Episcopal Divinity School, for 18 years. And then before that, I was at the University of St. Thomas in St. Paul, Minnesota. I was there 14 years, and I was not only in the theology department, but I directed their women's studies program for about 5 years, not only for St. Thomas, but for 5 colleges there. So that's it.
Wow, that's awesome. All right, great. Question number 2. What do you work on in your scholarship, just generally speaking?
You know, I had to think about this one. And what I'm going to say is that what I'm doing for my whole professional life is issues of biblical interpretation. How do we interpret the Bible? And do we interpret it from a literary perspective, a historical perspective, or ideological perspective, which could include feminist criticism, post-colonial, economic criticism, or Asian American. I do that too, and intersectional perspective. So I use these different methods to try to understand the biblical text and the questions it raises.
Okay.
So it's basically methodology.
Okay. Yeah, thank you. Third question, is there a specific project that you're working on now that's kind of got you excited even in retirement?
Oh, well, something I've been commissioned to do. I do a lot of work in poverty. And so I'm right now researching Poverty in the Prophets for the Oxford Handbook of Wealth and Poverty in the Biblical World. And then also something called Poverty and Its Feminization for a companion to feminist theologies, which is something for the Australian scholars that I know. So that's what I've been working on. That's a lot. So.
That doesn't sound like retirement to me, but yeah, very good. Yeah. All right. Question number 4 is a different one. What if anything, do you find exciting or maybe challenging about doing the work of biblical studies out here, specifically in the Pacific Coast region of the U.S., or maybe in your case, Southern California?
Well, first of all, I like being here in Southern California because I lived in Chicago. Well, I did my degree in Toronto, 14 years in St. Paul, Minnesota, 18 years in Boston, and I never wanted to see snow again. So the notion of coming here to California, was very exciting to me, and also living, particularly here at Pilgrim Place. But also because, again, I'm an Asian American, and I've been able to network and participate in and organize a lot of different things with Asian Americans. I mean, for example, about a year after I came here, I organized a conference for Asian women in theology and ministry, Asian North American women and Pacific Islanders in theology and ministry, and we held it at Chapman University. And also, I was able to network with Asian Episcopalians here, and go join them, and they have a thing called the Gathering of Asian American Spirituality. So I've been able to, be in touch with more Asian American groups here on in Southern California than back on the East Coast.
Wow, that's great. Thank you very much for that. Last question, and it's a challenging one. These are difficult times filled with the realities of the COVID-19 pandemic and racial and social injustice and Black Lives Matter and more. Any thoughts on being a biblical scholar in this time and context?
Well, first of all, I should say that it has been very, very frustrating for me being stuck here in this retirement community and not being able to go out physically, to protest. I mean, because I usually do go out and protest. However, as I said, I work on poverty and poverty in the Bible, and that work has made me very much aware that COVID-19 particularly strikes very vulnerable populations of African Americans and Latinx populations, and that the protests that we are seeing right now, those protests that we're seeing, it's collective resistance against those, collective resistance to the abuses of power against these very vulnerable populations. So I've become angry, basically, incensed, when I hear and read about the abuses of the biblical text, when they're used to support racism, when they're used to support white supremacy, when they're used to support the prosperity gospel, homophobia. I mean, the list goes on. And it makes me wonder as a biblical scholar and as an educator in seminary, where do these ministers, preachers, and pastors do their seminary? What did they learn? I mean, did they at all receive any anti-racism or anti-oppression training that was very much a part of the curriculum at Episcopal Divinity School? Again, as a biblical scholar, I want to put people in touch with the prophetic message and the social justice messages of the prophets and the gospels, to push back and resist and eliminate, these abuses and, uplift these suffering populations. So that's basically where I am regarding, me as a biblical scholar in these terrible times.
Well said. Well, Gail, thanks for taking this time, and on behalf of myself and so many others who have benefited from your great scholarship and friendship over the years, thank you for your work. May it continue, and stay safe and well. And I hope for all of the rest of you, you'll join us on the next installment of the SBL Pacific Coast's 7 Good Minutes, Meet Our Scholars.